Llpsi, welcome to this video lesson on Familia Romana, Capitulum Secundum, Chapter 2, and we're looking at Section 3 today. Quis est Cornelius? Who is Cornelius? Cornelius Dominus Romanus est. Cornelius is a Roman master. So just like Julius, in other words, he owns slaves. Okay, he's a master of a household. Domus is the word for house in general in Latin, so dominus and domina, master and mistress, sort of mean master of the house, mistress of the house, that kind of thing. They run things. Julius et Cornelius duo domini Romani sunt. Julius and Cornelius are two Roman masters. Medus non est servus Cornelii. Medus is not a slave of Cornelius. Medus servus Julii est. Now, pausing for a moment there, think to yourself, medus servus Julii est. What is the genitive possessive ending there? So hopefully you say e on Julii, right? That's the genitive singular masculine form. All right, going on. Cornelius says, cuius servus est medus? Whose slave is Medus? And Julius says, medus servus meus est. Medus is my slave. Cornelius then says, esne Davus servus tuus? Is Davus your slave? And Julius says, Davus quoque servus meus est. Servi mei sunt medus et Davus et ceteri multi. Davus also is my slave. My slaves are Medus and Davus and many others. Now notice et ceteri looks a lot like etc., right? So etc. actually comes from et cetera, which is the neuter form of this. Ceteri is just the masculine form. This is an adjective that means others or rest in Latin. So et cetera is coming from et cetera, which literally means and the others and the rest. So my slaves are Medus and Davus and many others. Cornelius then says, esne Delia ancilla tua? Is Delia your maidservant? So we keep getting these possessive adjectives. Meus, my, tuus, your. So the tu there, that's the feminine of tuus. Is Delia your maidservant? Let's go into the next page. Julius replies, Delia est ancilla mea, et Sura quoque ancilla mea est. Delia is my maidservant, and Sira also is my maidservant. Ancilla mea sunt Delia et Sura et ceterae multi. My maidservants, my slave women, are Delia and Sira and many others, right? Et ceterae is now the feminine form of etc., so to speak. Familia mea magna est. My family, my household is big. It's a little bit of a bragging episode here from Julius, right? He's showing off his riches and wealth and the huge family he has. Each slave would be the equivalent of thousands and thousands of dollars in worth. Slaves were very expensive property. Of course, it's a historical evil again that there is slavery in this society, but certainly within the society itself, this was one of the marks of wealth. Cornelius then says, quot servi sunt in familia tua? How many slaves are in your family, your household? And Julius replies, in familia mea sunt centum servi. Again, seems a bit of a braggart here. In my family, there are 100 slaves. I don't know if this is exact or just a round number here, but the point is the guy is very wealthy. And Cornelius is appropriately impressed, and he says, quid? What? And Julius says, numerus suorum meorum est centum. The number of my slaves is 100. All right, now I want you to look at that sentence, numerus suorum meorum est centum. Think to yourself, where is the genitive plural or the possessive plural? You know that we use the plural apostrophe s, or we use the of plus a plural ending. Hopefully, you're able to pick out servorum with the O-R-U-M, and then the adjective meorum, which agrees with that. So the number of my slaves, plural, so notice we use the of, and then we use the plural ending, is 100. Cornelius then says, centum servi, 100 slaves. Magnus est numerus suorum tuorum. Great is the number of your slaves. All right. So he is impressed there. And then we have some pictures. Liber antiquus, liber novus. Now notice this is liber and not liber. Earlier we talked about the adjective liber, which means free, and that liberi means children or free people, right? So the only difference between liber meaning free person and liber meaning book is the length of that I. Okay, liber short I, book. That's where we get library and librarian from. But liberty comes from liber, which means free. Okay, so liber antiquus, you might be able to guess that means old book, ancient book, something like that, right? Antique and ancient come from antiquus. And liber novus means new book, okay? Novel and nova, in the sense of supernova, come from novus. All right, liber tuus Latinus, your Latin book. Now, one thing I don't know if I've mentioned yet, but just make note of this. The U and V are the same letter in Latin. The Romans wrote them the same way, so when they were writing capitals, it looked more like a V. When they were writing, they didn't really have capital lowercase as one system. They just either wrote all in capitals or all in kind of a script, a cursive script, and it looked more like our lowercase. And when they wrote in that kind of a script, the U's and V's looked more like U's. So again, the thing is, U and V are really the same letter for the Romans, and so tuus here looks like it has two V's, but it sounds like it has two U's. Okay, in Latinus it looks like it ends with a VS, but it sounds like us, right? So just be aware that to the Romans they were really the same thing. Ecce duo libri Latini. Look to Latin books. Now notice that the word for books in the plural is not liberi, but libri. So sometimes in plural words that end with er in the singular, the e is going to drop out when you go to the plural. So not liberi, but libri, right? Look to Latin books. Liber antiquus, old book, et liber novus, and a new book. Lingua Latina est primus liber tuus Latinus. Lingua Latina is your first Latin book. Titulus libri tui, the title of your book, est lingua Latina, is lingua Latina. Now, lingua means tongue in its most literal sense, but it can also mean language. It's where we get language and bilingual from. Okay. Liber tuus non antiquus, your book is not old, sed novus est, but is new. In lingua Latina sunt multae paginae et multa capitula. In lingua Latina there are many pages. Pagina is page, right? We see that in the margin in the picture. Et multa capitula, and many chapters. So capitulum is a neuter word. So capitula is the plural. Capitulum primum, chapter the first. Secundum, the second. Tertium, the third. Cetera, and etc., right? So notice in Latin you normally say chapter the first, chapter the second, chapter the third. So capitulum primum, capitulum secundum, capitulum tertium. We normally today say chapter 1, 2, 3, but if you look at some older English books, they'll say, chapter the first, chapter the third, because Romans did it that way. And when they first started making books in English, the earliest ones kind of did it the old Roman way. Imperium Romanum, Roman Empire. Est titulus capituli primi, is the title of chapter 1. Now, titulus, this word for title here, obviously our word title comes from it. There's also titulary, which is a fancy English adjective having to do with naming people with titles and so on. But titulus in Roman times actually meant a little strip that would have the title of the book written on it, and it would come out of the end of the scroll. And that way, when the scrolls were all packed up on the shelf, you would have that little tab or little ribbon coming out the end, sticking off to the outside of the shelf, so you could read that and see which scroll was which, right? So that's what a titulus was for them. It's a sort of little title strip that would stick out of the scroll. Titulus Capituli Secundi est Familia Romana. The title of the second chapter is Familia Romana. In Capitulo Secundo sunt 6 paginae. In the second chapter, there are 6 pages. In pagina prima, capituli secundi, multa vocabula nova sunt. On the first page of the second chapter, there are many new words. Vir, femina, puer, puella, familia, cetera. Vir, meaning man, femina, meaning woman. Now notice that's where we get feminine from, but it doesn't mean feminine, so don't translate femina as feminine. Femininus, the adjective, is the word for feminine, and it is related to femina, but femina is the noun, meaning specifically woman. Puer, word for boy. Puella, the word for girl. Familia, the word for family or household. And then cetera, which means and the rest and others. Numerus vocabulorum Latinorum magnus est. The number blank is big. Now look at vocabularum Latinorum. Think about what the orum endings mean. The number of Latin words, so that of plural, right? This is a genitive plural ending again. The number of Latin words is great. And indeed, there are plenty of Latin words for you to learn, tens of thousands of them. Latin is not quite as big a vocabulary language as like English or ancient Greek or even German, which they love to like make new words. Latin is fairly conservative, so compared to many languages, the words it has are fewer in number, and each word can have more meanings. But there are plenty for you to learn. And to really master the basics of a language, you need probably between 1,000 and 2,000 words to get the basic vocabulary under your belt. So hopefully you can learn that many in the course of your studies of Latin and get a good familiarity with the language. If you learn that many well, then you can probably guess at, a few thousand more words, right? That's how vocabulary works. You recognize new words based on the roots you've found in old words. Well, I hope that this was helpful and you learned a few things. And next time, we'll take a look at grammar.